ever get that feeling like you just want to cut through all the noise and get right to the heart of something, something big?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Something that's like captured people's imaginations for centuries.
Totally.
Well, that's what we're doing today. I mean, you've seen them, the shape. I'm talking pyramids, the Pyramids of Giza.
The pyramids, more than just ancient monuments, they're symbols of a whole civilization, puzzles that we're still trying to figure out. And let's be honest, they're just awe-inspiring. The sheer size of them, how long they've been standing there.
I know, right? And that's exactly what we're here to do. You sent over some really fascinating material, and we're going to dive deep, really try to understand, how they were built, why they were built, and all those mysteries that still surround them. This is like your express ticket to understanding the Pyramids of Giza. So where do we even begin with something this massive?
Well, I think the best place to start is at the beginning. We're talking about ancient Egypt, the Old Kingdom period, around 2600 BC. This was a really important time. The Egyptian state was powerful, organized, and that level of control and planning, that was essential for a project of this scale.
So it wasn't just like someone woke up one morning and said, hey, let's build a pyramid.
Right.
There was a real reason they put so much into this.
Exactly. The pyramids were all about the ancient Egyptian beliefs about the afterlife. See, pharaohs weren't just kings, they were considered living gods. And their journey to the afterlife, that was super important for the whole of Egypt. They believed it kept everything stable. So the pyramids, they were monumental tombs. They were designed to make sure the pharaoh had a smooth transition into the next world. Everything they'd need would be there.
So they weren't just like burial chambers. It was more like a launch pad for their journey into eternity.
That's a great way to put it. And when we talk about Giza, we're mostly interested in the three Great Pyramids. The most famous one, that's the Great Pyramid of Khufu. Imagine something 146 meters high. That's almost 480 feet. The amount of material they use is mind-blowing.
It's hard to even picture how tall that is. You almost have to compare it to modern skyscrapers. Really makes you think about our own engineering achievements, doesn't it?
It does. And then there's the Pyramid of Khafre. It's a little smaller, but it's built on higher ground. So in pictures, it often looks taller.
I see.
And then the last one's the Pyramid of Menkaure. That's the smallest of the three. But it's still a pretty impressive structure.
And of course, we can't forget that iconic figure, the Great Sphinx, just watching over it all.
The Sphinx.
Yeah.
A lion's body with a human face. It's such an enigma. The most common theory, and there's archaeological evidence to back this up, is that it represents Pharaoh Khafre, which just shows the strong connection between these massive structures and the rulers of that time.
But even with the Sphinx, there's still debate about, how old it really is and who that face actually is. Some of the material shared really highlights that, just adds another layer of intrigue to the whole place. So for our listeners' understanding that these pyramids were mainly tombs for pharaohs like Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure back in the Old Kingdom, that's like the foundation for understanding why they're so important. Now the question everyone wants to know, how did they actually build these things?
Oh yes, the million-dollar question. How did they do it without modern technology? How did they move and place millions of huge stones so precisely?
Exactly. We're talking about blocks the size of cars, some even bigger, moved and lifted without cranes. They didn't even have the wheel as we know it. What do we know about their methods? What do the sources say?
Well, there are a few main theories. First, let's talk about the materials themselves. Most of the pyramids are made from limestone. They quarried it pretty close by. But for the outer layer and some of the interior, they used granite. And some of that granite came from quarries hundreds of miles away, near Aswan. And like you said, some of these blocks were massive. Some of the granite pieces weighed over 80 tons. That's one of the biggest challenges right there, just getting all that material and transporting it.
80 tons. I can't even imagine. So how did they move these giant stones from the quarry to the construction site? And then how did they lift them into place?
The most widely accepted idea is that they used ramps and wooden sleds. Imagine this. As the pyramid got taller, they built these huge ramps next to it, made of brick, earth, and stone. And these ramps could have been straight or maybe even spiraling. They would have provided an incline. So teams of workers would use ropes and these strong wooden sleds to drag the blocks up the ramps. Archaeologists are still debating the exact design of these ramps, but the basic idea that they used manpower and inclines, that's pretty much accepted.
Talk about a huge human effort. And one thing that really jumped out at me from what you shared is how our understanding of who the builders were has changed. It wasn't just an endless line of slaves forced to work.
Right. No, that's a big misconception. Archaeologists now believe that most of the workers were skilled laborers, craftsmen, engineers,
Yeah.
architects, and they lived in organized cities near the pyramids. There's evidence they had food, housing, even medical care. It seems like it was a huge project organized by the state. And these workers were essential to its success. They probably even had a certain social standing. It tells us that this was a complex and very organized society. They could manage a project this big.
That's a big change in how we think about it. It tells you a lot about their society and the resources they had.
Sure.
And the time it took to build these things is pretty amazing, too. The sources say it took about 20 years to finish the Great Pyramid.
Yeah, 20 years. That's incredible. To build something that big, that precisely, and in just 2 decades, it means they had a constant workforce. Tens of thousands of people working on this one project for years. Really shows their dedication and planning.
And the precision is just incredible. The way the Great Pyramid is almost perfectly aligned with true north, south, east, and west. It blows my mind every time I think about it.
What's really amazing is the level of astronomical and surveying knowledge they must have had to get that alignment so accurate within a fraction of a degree. Even with today's equipment, that will be a huge engineering challenge. Makes you think about the tools and techniques they used for observation and measurement.
It makes you realize that their knowledge was far more advanced than we sometimes give them credit for.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about why they were built, who built them, and this monumental task of construction. Now let's talk about the mysteries that still surround the Pyramids of Giza.
Even after centuries of research, some things about the pyramids are still a mystery. Take the internal layout, for example. We know about the main burial chambers and passageways that have been found. But many people believe, and this is based on discoveries and scans, that there are hidden chambers still waiting to be found, which keeps the excitement of exploration alive.
It's like the ultimate locked box, isn't it? Yeah, there's something inside, but you haven't found all the keys yet.
Right.
And then, of course, there are the less conventional theories about why the pyramids exist, like the alien theories that you mentioned in the sources.
Oh, yeah. The idea that aliens were somehow involved in building the pyramids. It's a popular theory.
Yeah.
And it comes from this sense of wonder, almost disbelief that ancient humans could have done this.
But the sources make it clear that this is more speculation than actual evidence.
Oh, for sure. The pyramids are amazing feats of engineering. But there's no real archaeological or scientific evidence to say that aliens built them. These theories tend to ignore the evidence we have about the capabilities of ancient Egyptian society. But the fact that these ideas keep popping up just shows how much the pyramids capture our imaginations.
I guess they're so extraordinary that some people look for extraordinary explanations. So these incredible structures were built thousands of years ago. What do they mean to the world today?
Well, for one thing, the Pyramids of Giza are the only one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world that's still standing. They're a major global landmark. They attract millions of tourists every year, and they're a powerful symbol of Egypt's long and rich history, a real source of pride for the country.
But all that attention and just the passage of time, that must make it hard to preserve them.
It does. The sources mention that the pyramids face a lot of threats today. Pollution from the city nearby, all the tourists, and just natural erosion. It all means that we need to keep working to conserve and restore them if we want them to be around for future generations.
Kind of makes you think, something so ancient, something that seems like it would last forever, it's actually pretty fragile. So when we look at these pyramids today, it really makes you think about the balance between what humans can achieve and the things we still don't know. Were they just the result of ancient Egyptian ingenuity? Or are there secrets we haven't uncovered yet? That's what the sources make you think about.
That's a really interesting point. We have evidence of how smart and organized the ancient Egyptians were. They're planning their technical skills. It shows that humans can achieve incredible things. But then there's the sheer scale, the precision, those unanswered questions. It makes you wonder if we really understand the past as well as we think we do.
It's that tension between what we know and what we don't know that keeps the pyramids so interesting.
I agree. It reminds us that even with all our technology and knowledge, the ancient world can still surprise us. It makes us rethink what ancient civilizations were capable of.
So here's a thought to leave you with as we wrap up this deep dive. Think about this. It's not just about the facts and figures. What do the Pyramids of Giza tell us about human ambition? What do they tell us about what past civilizations were capable of? Maybe they could do things we haven't even thought of yet. It really makes you wonder what other incredible stories are still out there waiting to be discovered.